MOSH adoption principles are centered around three legs or three elements. Firstly, it's the technical elements, which mainly looks at the risk that is being addressed and the various controls that are put in place, whether be it in noise, dust, fall of ground, or transported machinery. But when we look at the technical elements, this prescribes the control that need to be put in place to address the specific risk. The second leg of the MOSH adoption system speaks to leadership behavior. And this mainly tells us the do's and don'ts that leaders need to abide by to make sure that leading practices are sustainable. And then when we look at the third leg is behavioral communication. And in behavioral communication, we mainly look at the key requirements that need to be communicated to employees to ensure that leading practices are sustainable. And part of the behavioral communication also includes the critical training that is required to ensure that leading practices are sustainable.
My involvement in this whole process was in the decision making to say that we will adopt this process. And then with regards to my role as the manager is to make the necessary resources available to the team to make sure that they roll this out successfully. I was also obviously involved in the leadership to show that I'm committed to the process, engaging the guys and making sure that we roll this out successfully.
The mine adoption team at Khwezela Colliery was formed after a full impact decision making process was taken by the management to adopt this simple leading practice, and it followed the guidelines from the MOSH adoption leading practice, where we had a multidisciplinary team, and basically the role of the adoption team was to coordinate all the activities to ensure that the simple leading practice is adopted at Khwezela successfully. So we had an adoption plan with clear-cut details on who needed to do what, when, and we kept on monitoring and tracking the progress. The significance of following the adoption guide was that it actually gives us a step-by-step approach on what we need to do, the different activities, and it helped the team really so that they know exactly what to do and when to do and get to the same outcomes that have been actually achieved from other operations.
It is important for the Health and Safety Committee to be part of the adoption process to review all safety, health and policies and procedures established pertaining hazard management and review incidents involving work-related fatalities, injuries, illness or near misses related to hazard management. So nothing about us without us.
Before we took over with the adoption, we were measuring noise levels of above the milestone level of 107 decibels, and the noise levels were not acceptable for our employees. By adopting the practice, we reduced the noise levels to 54 decibels.
Went on to revise our standard operating procedure for tire deflation or tire management. We had two tools that we adopted, one of them being the portable muffler and the fixed system that we installed on the workshop. And we also had to revise or review our planned task observations to include the use of the tools, as well as revising our job risk assessments.
Once leadership has bought into the technical elements or the leading practice, they need to then engage with key stakeholders on the mines like the health and safety committees as well as the affected employees, and also ensure that there's a general communication that goes out to the entire mine around the process that they're going to embark on.
Training for the adoption process was aligned to the SAQA regulations. And in this instance, we needed to ensure that the guys are trained against outcomes-based training, which essentially means that after theoretical and practical training, the guys are going to be issued with certificates that are SAQA aligned and also get statements of results. This in turn will ensure that at the end of the day, the guys are issued with passport to do this essential work signed by both the supervisor and the engineers.
The desired leadership behavior at Khwezela Colliery was achieved through our focused leadership interactions, which is a cross-section of our management teams going to the coalface and interacting with different employees to encourage them to follow the correct procedures to carry out the work safely.
Part of the responsibilities of the MOSH adoption team on site is to establish a monitoring and evaluation program. Progress on leading practices is reported at either two gatherings: an interest group for simple leading practice or a COPA for full leading practice. And this allows the adopting mines to exchange some of the challenges that they encountered during the monitoring and evaluation process, as well as get guidance from both other adopting mines and the Minerals Council MOSH adoption teams.
We got a lot of support from the MOSH noise adoption team. We had quite a number of bilateral meetings and engagements, and also whenever we encounter challenges as Khwezela, during the adoption, the MOSH noise team was just a phone call away, and also they will assist us in terms of the learnings from other mines that have already developed the practice on how to overcome our own challenges here on site.
It has benefited me a lot as a technician, because in terms of health and safety, I'm not gonna be exposed as well on something like eye injuries, dust, and the high level of noise. The process was easy to adopt because we had to follow the MOSH guidelines, and our supervisor take us through step by step and explain everything to us in such a way that we understand it and be able to use it successfully.
It was important for us to integrate this into our procedures so that it becomes a sustainable or a practice that even if the employees that are here today are going to leave us, new employees will also come in on board and learn from the revised procedures, that this is the way that we do our deflation.
We've all been part of some process whereby the organization would have invested significant amount of money into a specific project, of which in the end was not well accepted due to the way it was rolled out. So with the MOSH principles, it lines up well, and it just helps to make sure that the solution is sustainable.
Years ago, people used to leave the mines deaf based on the loud noises that they were exposed to when deflating tires. With the adoption of this process, the sound levels has gone low, ensuring that the guys leave at the expiry of their time with the mines, going back home, hearing intact.